The demo for Anno 117 is here, and the first thing you see when you open the game is a character portrait of a Roman that looks like they've been airbrushed for a L'Oreal ad campaign. These people don't look like governors or freedmen or Celtic chieftains, they look like they're about to pitch you a new crypto wallet. And this isn't just an Anno problem. Civ 7 just today saw massive layoffs at its developer Firaxis, and this game also, among other reasons, failed because of glossy, soulless character renders that look like LinkedIn profile pictures generated in Unreal Engine. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what I call the UE5 realism trap, and today we're going to take a deeper look at it. Welcome back to Toasty Gaming, the channel where we're going to spend 15 minutes talking about why faces in a city builder matter, and why the faces in this specific city builder aren't as good as they should be. Anno 117 is mechanically fine. It's 1800 with togas, with some religion and research bolted on top, but the real question is whether it has a warm fuzzy Anno soul, that magic that Anno 1404 nailed. And from afar 117 almost does. The vistas, the music, the ambient chatter, all of it sets the stage, which makes it sting twice as much when you click a character portrait and suddenly Rome looks like some corporate brochure. So what exactly is this soul I keep harping on about? It's not something mystical. It's the moment when music, graphics and voices trick your lizard brain into caring about this little town in your video game. In 1404 you'd open a parchment framed portrait, see Brother Hilarious looking like a caricatured loaf of bread, hear his warm line delivery, and suddenly your city had this personality living in a monastery up in a hill. And it gave the entire game more character. In 117 you open a glossy card and your freedman looks like he's about to ask you whether you've considered refinancing your villa. And the tonal clash kills the atmosphere you just had while watching the sunset over Latium. So let's break down why this corporate gloss reads as soulless. First of all, it's the, well, glossy skin. In rendering terms, this is called low roughness, which just means the computer acts as though your Roman skin is perfectly polished marble. That's why their forehead glows as though they bathed in cooking oil. Then you've got the specular highlights. It's a fancy word for shiny white spots. On armor it looks cool, on every cheek in Latium it's like everyone's auditioning for a Maybelline ad, and I'm running out of random cosmetics companies for those gags. Then you've got the hero lighting. This is when artists slap a perfect rim light around the head so the model looks good on a poster. It's great for movie ads, it's weird when your Germanic Celtic tribesman looks like he's about to star in a perfume commercial. And then you've got the neutral LUTs. A LUT is just a color filter. Neutral LUTs keep everything safe and bland, which is why your Roman governor and your Albion bog dweller both look like they came from the same IKEA store. It's all clean, perfect, corporate. These don't feel like citizens or even actual people, they feel like soulless corporate assets, and that's why the vibe evaporates the second you have to look at them. By contrast, Anno 1404 made a different choice. The portraits were rather matte. No glowing cheeks, they looked painted, not waxed. Features were exaggerated, you've got big noses, overly sized faces, cartoonish proportions, which made them memorable. When I say that Brother Hilarious looks like a caricatured loaf of bread, I do mean it. The colors were warm and oversaturated, not realistic, but very cozy and also very expressive. And all of the frames also felt fitting. You've had parchment, you've had obviously wood in the logo, the entire UI looked like it belonged into the world. The result were portraits that felt more human than the ones in 117. 1404 wasn't selling realism, it was selling identity. And identity is what makes you care about the video game and ultimately what makes you feel like a video game character is actually real or relatable. But how did we even end up in this glorified gloss land that is modern game development? A big reason are the modern art pipelines. They are designed to push everything through the same PBR realism grinder. PBR stands for physically based rendering, which sounds very scientific, but in practice it means every material, skin, cloth, leather, runs through the same shader cookbook, and surprise, they all come out the same shiny way. A reason for why this isn't being changed, even though most people dislike it, is also that a lot of game developers are lacking the necessary skills to actually create different graphics or different assets. A lot of skills in game development have ultimately been limited to just working with UE5 without even having sufficient C++ knowledge to carry out higher level problem solving, and so you just end up with everyone creating the same PBR style assets. That's fine if you're making photorealistic UE5 game number 500, even though even now, if you've looked at how the gaming culture sphere is reacting right now, there's a bit of a UE5 fatigue going on, but it's a massive vibe killer if you're trying to build everything that doesn't perfectly fit the mass-produced hyper-realistic UE5 mold like a city builder. When everyone looks like they were printed from the same wax doll factory, everything loses identity. And that's especially painful for a game that's supposed to be more unique and not as mainstream as the other AAA titles you'd see. If you don't believe me that this is a lack of skill, just look at Civ 7. Firaxis had to lay off dozens of people because, first of all, the game flopped due to bad gameplay, but also because the characters just looked laughable. Every leader looked like some glossy raisin figure. It's the same disease, realism without stylization. And ultimately, the reason why you saw so many layoffs was because Firaxis had to accept that many of the developers just weren't cutting it. That's why they were laid off, and that's why many of those people are now also not immediately getting new jobs somewhere. If you want realism in your video game, you can go outside, but if you want memorable characters and memorable graphics, you need to exaggerate, stylize, and let the people through that look human again. It might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but ultimately the more stylized and exaggerated the characters in a video game are, the more human and relatable they end up looking. Where Anno 117 really twists the knife is that it pairs those glossy faces with voice acting that doesn't sound as though it comes from the Roman era. It's this perfectly clean, neutral, and somewhat weird delivery with, for example, your freedmen sounding as though they were random Victorian-era steel foundry workers. That's honestly very annoying. Like, in the English voice line, it was constantly called Gav. How are we doing, Gav? Do you like the sardines, Gav? I felt like I was in some random British pub and not in the Roman Empire based on those voice lines. And the same goes for all the other characters. The Chinese governor woman has the most unfunny, racist Chinese accent I've heard in a very long time. It's not even that fun Asian accent you had in, say, Shogun 2, where your military advisor would constantly scream, "A shame for dispré." It's more of an annoying and honestly very unfitting Chinese accent. I don't understand why they went for this direction there, honestly. What makes all of this particularly tragic with Anno 117 is that the music and ambience from afar are really giving it a sense of this Anno soul, and then the portraits and voiceover just undo all of that. The good news are that a lot of this can be at least somewhat fixed rather quickly and without an army of artists. You could try to raise the roughness, stop making skin look like marble, matte looks more cozy than this corporate gloss. You could reduce the specular highlights, save the shininess for some bronze statues and not for everyone's cheeks. You could add more variation. Ultimately, you just need to remember that humans aren't made from plastic and you will just go the correct direction there. You could color grade the portraits, give them some warm filter, maybe a tiny bit of film grain. This is a fake texture that tricks the eye into seeing paint and not the plastic that you're seeing now when you look at most video game characters. A better UI could also do a lot of heavy lifting here. Something that's closer to parchment or papyrus, which fits better into the era instead of this weird PowerPoint corporate style that you're seeing in the UI right now. Maybe add some idle animations for your character portraits. For example, the British Boudica stand-in could try to threaten you with some axe as she's really unhappy about your presence in Albion. The random Greek Hercules guy could be flexing his muscles as his entire cult within the video game is built around, well, bodybuilding, basically. This could also help to add more character and identity to the AI opponents within the game, and also make you connect more to them. And finally, what can be fixed very quickly is the voiceover direction. The actors should be told to act as though they were Roman or Albion inhabitants and not just some random Victorian-era British person, and this would probably already fit, and whoever's voicing the Chinese woman should probably stop having this weird accent, and everything would already end up being much better. All of those are comparatively easy, cheap, and ultimately quite effective. But why does all of this matter? It matters because hopefully you will spend hundreds of hours staring at these faces while playing Anno 117. They're not some garnish, they are ultimately the handshake between you and your city. You spend most of your time looking at this town, but you don't have any faces you could put to it. And the few faces of your inhabitants and of your AI opponents are the only, well, human face, literally, you can see within this video game. They are what makes your connection to this world human, ultimately. And that's why they're so important. And Anno 117 is already very good at creating this sense of a video game soul from a distance. The landscapes, the music, the vibes, all of them are great, but this makes it even more painful when the portraits and voiceover clash so hard. They bleed away the exact strength the game actually has. Anno 117 has the makings of a soul, but every time you open a portrait, that soul is forced into a three-piece suit and shoved on stage at some tech bro fintech conference. Turn down the gloss, roughen the edges, warm the frame, and suddenly your city stops being some graphics demo and starts being a place where you want to live. So what's your opinion about the graphics in Anno 117 and what I'd call the modern UE5 slop design in general? Drop your opinions in the comments down below. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and of course, stay toasty. Cheers!